to our October 2021 Fifth Window Spotlight. And thank you all so much for joining us. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Fifth Window. And first and foremost, I want to say happy Halloween. I'm really excited to be with you all here today. And we host these spotlights every month to feature nurses and their unique journeys within their experience of nursing, but also to highlight their self-care and well-being. And so for today's spotlight, we will be able to screen any questions and comments that come our way. We are actively live streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, so we'll be able to see any questions or comments that you have in the chat. And then we will be able to do our best to respond to those questions and comments as we move forward in the conversation. And so with that being said, we would like to first start with introducing Fifth Window. So I'll go ahead and have Michael introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. Happy Halloween. I'm Michael Horn. I'm the lead developer for Fifth Window.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. And now we're really honored and excited to introduce our October 2021 Fifth Window Spotlight guest, which is none other than my twin sister, Charmaine Platon. Hello, Charmaine. Welcome.
Hi, Charlene.
And a little bit about Charmaine. Charmaine Platon, BSN RN, is a Sugar Cravings Coach. She's a certified healthcare coach and also registered nurse. She's the creator of Sugar-Free Self-Care and is an impulsive eating expert. Years ago, Charmaine was an impulsive emotional eater and couldn't imagine a life with less sugar and carbs. During her work as a nurse, eating cookies in the break room was the way that she coped with stress on the job, until she was diagnosed with prediabetes in 2017. Since then, Charmaine has reversed her prediabetes, maintained weight loss, and created sugar-free self-care to empower women with the tools that they need to stop using sugar and carbs as a means to cope with daily life stressors. She now empowers dozens of women to practice sugar-free self-care so they can have the body they deserve and feel in control around food. Thank you so much for joining us, Charmaine.
Thanks for having me. So excited to be here.
Yes, we felt that it was really great to have you on our spotlight for October. You know, Halloween is today. There's a lot of sugar, with fall, pumpkin spice lattes, and so it was a really timely conversation, to have with you about sugar, about wellness, and everything in between. And, I just want to first start with, your journey as a life coach and weight loss coach. How did you first learn about life coaching and weight loss coaching, and what led you to pursue those certifications?
Well, so I never thought I'd be a life or weight loss coach ever in my life. Like when I started nursing, I just thought that was the only career I'd be in for the rest of my life. Never intended to be an entrepreneur ever. But it's just funny where life takes you. So I was actually really into fitness before, and I used to be into marathons and half marathons and stuff like that. And I became a personal trainer. But then I don't know, it got to the point where I was just feeling really like in my nursing career, I was feeling burnt out. I was going through a lot of stress. So I thought changing jobs would make me happy. But when I went into personal training, I still wasn't happy. And I was just kind of like, what's wrong? Like, why am I not happy? And it helped me do this Google search. I looked up like things about self-doubt and all these things I was experiencing. And that's how I found out about the Life Coach School podcast. And that's how I found out about life coaching. And then I learned more about it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I wanted to do. Especially as a psychiatric nurse, I always like the psychiatry, like interpersonal aspect of psychiatry, not so much the acute treatment, but the interpersonal skills and teaching patients how to cope. So I went down that road and I realized like, oh, mindset is the most important thing. Like really learning how to take care of your mental health is what helped me not only feel better in my job and stay longer until I was ready to leave, but it helped me just have better relationships with my coworkers and stop turning to food for comfort, because I was a stress eater, as you mentioned, for most of my career in nursing.
Yes, and how did you choose that certification? I think was it called Life School Coaching?
Oh, the Life Coach School.
Oh, the Life Coach School. Yes. How did you choose that one? Because it looks like there's a lot of programs out there.
Right. So when I make decisions, I'm not the type to research a whole lot. Like if something resonates with me, I just pay. Like I just go all in. So I listened. I know the exact episode number. I listened to episode number 22 of this Life Coach School podcast. I looked it up when I was in a lot of self doubt and I was feeling badly about myself. And for some reason, it's created by Brooke Castillo. She's the creator of the Life Coach School, and that podcast episode on self-doubt, like something about it just resonated with me, like the way she explains how self-doubt is part of your growth, and it just clicked with me in a way I never heard it before. And I just kept I listened to that podcast episode probably like 20-30 times, and then I listened to the rest of her podcast, and then I was like, this is what I need. And then I just signed up for her coach certification just like 2 months later.
Oh, that's awesome. I did listen to some of the episodes of the podcast too, and it's really good. I need to listen to the one specifically that you mentioned.
Yes, episode number 22 on self-doubt.
22. Oh, I love it. Yes. Self-doubt is something that I think a lot of people can resonate with, and then in terms of the different types of coaching, right, with life coaching and weight loss coaching, what different skills did you learn between the two, or were there a lot of similarities between the two, especially around mindset?
Yeah, like the thing about weight loss I never knew is that it really is all about your mindset, and it's all about how you manage your mind. Like people always think weight loss is about your relationship with food, but it's really about your relationship with your emotions and how you're managing your emotions. Because what I learned, and this goes for life coaching too, like a lot of the concepts that you could apply to weight loss does apply to life coaching, but it's like how you manage your emotions determines how you act. And if you aren't in a place where you can manage your emotions in a useful way, it affects all of your life. Like if you're stressed and you don't know how to manage the stress in a productive way, like it interfered with my nursing practice. Like I got really irritable with my coworkers. I got irritable at my patients visitors, which I'm sure we could all understand that. And so I showed up at work in a way I didn't want to. So learning how to manage your emotions in a way where you're not avoiding them by eating or escaping them is literally the secret sauce to the universe. And that's like the foundation of life coaching too. Just like how to manage your emotions in a useful way, um, and not let it get the best of you, and then how to think on purpose to get the results you want.
Yes, and why do you think that it is that we don't have this focus a lot on mindset, just in general in our training or just in our throughout our lives? Why do you think there is such a lack of that emphasis on mindset?
I think we just have so much stigma around, first of all, like, and the thing with mental health, like I feel like because I've been a psychiatric nurse at UCLA for 8 years, like you learn a lot about mental health, and you learn a lot about people's attitudes toward mindset and psychiatry and emotional health. And you just learn that there's a lot of stigma around anything that, like, I feel like, especially even in the nursing world, like if you have a mindset, or if you have like a emotional barriers where someone seems like unproductive, or someone doesn't seem to, if someone's taking care of their mind, it just seems to be like unproductive, or it doesn't seem to be, it seems indulgent for a lot of people. And so it's also hard because if you have something going on in your mind, people tend to stigmatize that, like, oh, there's nothing really wrong, like you're just lazy, you're just unproductive. So we have a lot of cultural stories around mindset issues that I think prevent people from actually looking at what's going on deeper in there. um, as a human species, we tend to judge people based on what they're doing, like their behaviors, and we don't see what's going on in their minds. So um, I think there's just a lot of cultural stigma and mental health stigma around that is a big barrier to actually looking at the mental health issues.
Yes, and with your background as a psychiatric nurse, I'm sure that you're no stranger to stigma in general when it comes to mental health and in general, that area of wellness. And can you tell us about your journey in psychiatric nursing? Because I still think that it's a field that a lot of nurses don't may not have as much exposure to, or may not have had the opportunity to do rotations in school. So how did you first find out about your interest in psychiatric nursing, and how was your career as a psychiatric nurse?
So I never thought I'd be a psychiatric nurse either. I didn't even know what psychiatric nursing was until I went to UC Irvine, and I fell in love with psychiatric. Well, first of all, I just didn't really like medicine to begin with, so that's part of it. So if you are interested in medicine, like, kudos to you. But for me, like, I went in just being like, oh, I guess I'll just do a medical job. But when I did a rotation, it was in College Hospital in Costa Mesa, and and it was just so fascinating. It was like going into a different world, like just learning about people who have depression or bipolar. And I was just so confused. I was like, how come I don't know anything about this? Like, I don't know about schizophrenia or depression or bipolar. Like, it felt like you were just being stuck in this fairy tale land, and then when your 12-hour shift was over, you go back to this real world. And it was just so fascinating for me to learn about the mind and seeing how people behave. And so I just fell in love with it right away. And then as a new grad nurse, I knew right away, I was like, I'm going to go apply to the psychiatric hospital at UCLA. Like, I'm not going to apply for any other, well, I don't want any other job besides the psych nursing job. And I thankfully, like, I got the job as a new grad in UCLA as a psych nurse. And then I just stayed there for 8 years. And it was just like the perfect nursing career for me.
That's awesome, and it's really cool to hear about your perspective. Being interested in psychiatric nursing because I was the opposite. I was always interested in medical nursing, which I always thought was really funny about the both of us. But yeah, I mean, I was really glad to be also exposed to psychiatric rotations and learning about of that side of nursing. But it does feel like a different world, that's for sure. And but I think it's something that's very important to focus on. And so from your career in UCLA, how did you then turn into entrepreneurship, or when did you first start to see that that could be a path for you, and then what ultimately led you to make that final leap, because that could be a scary place for a lot of people.
Oh, it's terrifying. It's the scariest decision I think I ever made in my life. I still don't know how I did it, but I never, like I said, I never intended to ever be an entrepreneur in my life. And then, but I was thinking about becoming a personal trainer already. So I did kind of, in the back of my mind, I had like an idea of like, oh, maybe, because I was thinking of switching jobs, because I was like, I was like, in it was probably in the middle of my nursing career, maybe like a few years in. And um, I think what got me wanting to think about leaving and going into entrepreneurship was there are a lot of things in the psychiatric unit that I just wasn't like, not non-supportive of, but I just wanted to make an impact in a different way. Like, I kept seeing patients come into the hospital, and they kept, like, the only treatment we were really giving that I noticed in an acute setting, which I know is the most you could do sometimes, but the only treatments we were really doing was giving medications and not really going deep into coping mechanisms and things like that. Like, and so people just keep coming back, and I felt like we weren't getting to the core root of the problem. Like, I just felt like I was just putting a band-aid on the problem, and they just kept coming back. And it was kind of like, in my heart, I felt like, there's got to be something more. Like, there's got to be something more to this that I could help with. Like, why do people have mental health issues? Like, why did they have the anxiety to begin with, or the depression? And then it got me thinking more about the preventive health route. And I was kind of like, you know what? Like, I think change isn't here in the hospital, because that's where they're already quite acute. Like, so I was kind of like, what if I help make change before they even come in? And I went more the preventive health route. And especially when I learned about life coaching, and when you learn the tools in life coaching, and just learning how to manage your emotions without escaping them, and without food, and how to have a different mindset, how to shift your perspective about things, I realized like, oh, something that was cool too was like, we learn about CBT a lot, like cognitive behavioral therapy in psychiatry, but we only give it for patients, but not for like staff, and not for actual, like, quote unquote normal people or whatever. And I was like, dude, CBT is like a skill that everyone needs to learn. So I kind of was like, the life coaching certification I did, they teach CBT in a really simple framework called the model. So it's really similar to CBT, but they just use a different
Oh, I think I lost your audio, man.
Oh, sorry. Hello?
Oh, yes, there you are.
Oh, okay. Did it just turn off right now?
I think a few sentences back.
Oh, okay. So I was just like, oh, we have to teach CBT to people before they even start having psychiatric issues. Like, so I kind of really got inspired to be like, I need to help people learn these tools because it could help in everyday life. And so I wanted to become a leader in the preventive health movement. And so that's where I thought like I could do that by having my own business, and I could impact more people, like way more people than in the hospital. I could impact the community, and even when you have an online market, you could impact millions. So I was kind of like, that's where I want to make my difference, with the skills I learned in the hospital and the coaching certification. But that's the impact I wanted to make.
And did you see other nurses at the time who had already pursued what you wanted to do, or were you pretty like one of the first people that you knew of who actually wanted to go that route in nursing
I
or
was
as a nurse?
I was the only person I knew who wanted to do something like, at least in my unit. Nobody, I mean, people will only talk about, oh, they want to become a nurse practitioner or they want to go back to school. Or I've known nurses who in my nursing school who've done other entrepreneurial things, like maybe started a different kind of business, like a restaurant or something else, but never like in life coaching. I never even heard of life coaching until I just found it on Google. So I'm the only one who ever heard of this thing. So it's definitely different.
Yes, and major kudos. And when you did decide to take that leap into, having this as your full-time occupation, what really pushed you to make that decision? Or how did you know it was the right time?
um, I guess like you have to decide when the time is, because it's like if you wait for a sign, it probably will never come because you'll always feel scared. Like it's always going to feel scary and terrifying. But I think the one thing that kind of gave me a final push was like, because I left my job last year during April, like around COVID. And since I'm in a psychiatric unit and I was working per diem at the time to build my business, we didn't have a lot of psychiatric patients in the unit. So I was constantly being canceled. But at the same time, I was growing my business and I had more one-on-one clients. So I was kind of like, oh, I'm making more money right now on my business. I'm being canceled. I'm not sure how long COVID will last. So I think this is a great time to just go. And people during COVID, especially, people needed a lot of mental health help in that time. So much stress eating, so much fear and anxiety in that time. So, and even now, but I was like, you know what? This is my opportunity. So I just took it and I was like, I'm going to go for it.
Yes, it's awesome. And I really think that COVID is probably the best time to start a business, honestly. With you could really focus on it since a lot of events have been, canceled. It's a really great time. I agree to start a business and to pursue a passion like entrepreneurship. And your business is called Sugar Free Self Care. And how did you first hear about living sugar free? And what solidified your decision to live the sugar free lifestyle and then teach others about it?
So I never thought in my life either that I'd stop eating sugar. Like that never occurred to me. Even when I was a personal trainer, I just loved carbs. Like I was kind of more into like the bro fitness kind of stuff. Like, oh, have protein shakes all the time. Like I used to have a regimen where I was drinking, like my personal trainer told me to drink like 3 protein shakes a day. Like I was training for American Ninja Warrior and I was drinking so much protein shakes and just eating like small meals every few hours. But even though I was eating that way, I still got pre-diabetic in 2017. And that really woke me up, like, because I was healthy. Like everyone, if you see me on the outside, everyone just loved my muscles and they love my abs. And they're just like, oh my God, what do you do? Are you a gymnast? Like, I get comments like that. But then even though on the outside I looked really healthy, when I would go get my lab results, like I would see my hemoglobin A1C trending every year. Like it always kind of kept creeping up. And And I didn't know why. Like it'd start at 5.4, then it'd go to 5.6, and then like every year it keeps going up and up, and then finally it went up to like 5.9, and my doctor was like, "Oh, it's not that bad," and I was like, "I'm pre-diabetic. Are you kidding me?" So I was like, something isn't right. Like I'm not, and I always knew that I hated cooking. Like I always ate like kind of convenient food, like protein bars and cereals and yogurt. Like I never liked to cook, but a lot of those foods had sugar, and it made sense that with more insulin resistance over time, my hemoglobin A1C kept going up. And so I was like, I know I have to change something. So that shifted me to start going to eating sugar-free, and not just sugar-free, not just eliminating sugar like candy and stuff, but actually eating whole foods, like not eating processed foods, like not having bread and like starchy foods like rice or grains and things like that, because that will bring your blood sugar up too. So I had to do a complete 360 on what I was eating, and actually started cooking my food, eating food that comes from the planet, and slowing down, like stabilizing my blood sugar levels more. And ever since, I just felt so much better. Like I stopped feeling hungry all day. I stopped feeling hangry and irritable, and I had more energy. And so it was, and I reversed my prediabetes from 5.9 A1C to 5.0. So
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, yeah. So I was like, oh man. And I felt so much better. So I was just like, I'm going to stay this way forever. And I did. I am right now.
And I could see why your provider said, "Oh, 5.9 is not that bad."
I know,
As someone
right?
who did, as someone who, went to FNP school, I totally see why they said that.
And they're like, that's
But
great. That's amazing.
great job. But no, I love how you took how you had the awareness to see that your labs were trending upwards despite what you might have been hearing. And I mean, I always so for everyone in the audience, I always refer to Charmaine as my buffer half because she's very, very fit. You would never have guessed that she had any challenges with prediabetes from, like, muscles on muscles. but but I think it's really awesome that you still took that ownership despite how things might have looked like on the outside, because really can't see how your labs are doing on the inside, right? You don't know what your blood pressure is, you won't know what your fasting glucose, your hemoglobin A1C will be on the inside. So really kudos to you on that. And as part of your business, what do you currently offer to your clients or people who are potentially interested in living sugar-free? What are they, or what have you seen people be most curious about when they first approach you about your business?
So with my business, first of all, I just want to say that I called it sugar-free self-care because my mission really is to help women everywhere learn how to feel better about themselves without turning to food for comfort. Because that was the number one thing for me. Like part of my prediabetes wasn't only just eating the processed food, but it was also that I turned so much to sugar to comfort myself when I was stressed at work. Like I remembered going to the break room every afternoon, and we'd have something called Tea for the Soul in UCLA. And every month, the little spiritual, I think the chaplain would come with his little cart, and he'd have tea and Diddy Reese cookies, which if you ever went to LA, Diddy Reese is like huge cookies that are super cheap, and they always have a line in the front of the store. But anyway,
Oh, I forgot about Diddy Reese. Oh my gosh, I haven't heard Diddy Reese in like 10 years.
I know. So he'd have this huge tray of Diddy Reese cookies with tea, and we'd have this cute little Tea for the Soul every month. And I loved Tea for the Soul because whenever it was Tea for the Soul time, I was like, oh, it's about to go down. It's chow down time. And so I'd go in when no one was in there, and I'd literally grab like 4 cookies, and I'd like either eat them all on the spot or hide them to eat them later. But they made me feel better. And then if they weren't around, if Tea for the Soul wasn't around, then I'd eat Pop-Tarts, or I'd eat pop chips from the vending machine, or I'd get a cookie from Subway, or the Len and Larry's cookies, like the healthy cookies. So I was finding ways to eat when I was feeling stressed. And then I was just kind of like, when the blood sugar came up, when the A1C came up high, I was like, I have to stop eating. So when I stopped eating, then I realized like, oh, now I have to learn how to deal with stress. Like I have to deal with what's coming up when I'm not eating. So So that's what I help my women with. Like, I help them, like, most of them, some of them come to me for weight loss as a goal, but most women want to, like, they tend to be very ambitious women who are, a lot of them are nurses, attorneys, entrepreneurs, and they tend to come to me because they feel like so in control in everything in their life except for food. And they just can't figure out, why do I keep eating the sugar and the carbs, even though I know intellectually it's not good for me? And so I help them stop the stress eating. I help them stop craving sugar and carbs and learn how to just take care of themselves and do sugar-free self-care, like how to just have a better life, how to feel better in their body and their mind, like without turning to food for comfort. So I do offer a 3-month group coaching program called the Impulse Mastery Program. And in that program, we dive in deep into the tools that you need to actually learn how to stop acting on your impulses to eat, how to stop eating emotionally, and how to actually have tools to take care of yourself when you're stressed that can help you get a solution, not just escape from your problems. Like, you actually learn how to solve problems a lot better. But that's what I coach my clients with, and it's amazing. Like, I've had women, like a nurse who's with me now, she lost 30 pounds in 3 months, and another woman who's been emotional eating for 46 years has stopped emotionally eating. So it works.
That's amazing. Congratulations to you and to your clients for really, making that investment. And those are like amazing results. And I took one of your your programs as well, the 6-week sugar-free challenge, and I saw some amazing results. And I stopped craving hot Cheetos, and that was like decades worth of craving hot Cheetos. So major kudos. It does have some great results. And when it comes to the clients that you work with, what do you think is the biggest barrier that comes up for people who are starting this journey, or people who are interested in this journey?
Uh, I think the biggest barrier when they start, like, well, first of all, when you learn any new habit, it's just being consistent with something. Like, because in the beginning, a lot of them will be excited, and then I really see, like, the real work starts in the middle, like kind of 4 weeks in. I always tell my clients 4 weeks in, I'm like, okay, like, this is the time where people start to fall off, and this is the time, like, this is where we have to learn, like, look at your thoughts that are in the way, like, look at your mindset. And that's probably the hardest part. It's like, people will be excited, but when you actually commit to something, you have to learn, how do you stay with something even though you're not seeing results right away. Because some people, like, the thing is, when you go sugar free, you'll lose a lot of weight in the beginning because you're losing a lot of water weight. But when the water weight goes off and then now you have to burn fat, it's a lot slower. So then people feel discouraged because they're like, oh, it's not working, or they get impatient, like, oh, like, it's not working, so they want to see results right away. And the hardest part is, like, can you have faith that you can reach your goal even if you don't see the results right away? Like, can you have that patience to stick it through all the way till the end? Because those are the people who are most successful. It's like, it's the ones who don't give up when they come across a roadblock. And I teach them, as a coach, I teach them how to overcome those roadblocks. But you also have to have that willingness to figure it out and not give up on yourself, even when something's not going as you thought it'd be. So that's a big part of it. And also the self-judgment, like, women especially, like, I know this happens with men too, but I just find, especially when it comes to body image and weight, like, women are really hard on themselves when the weight's not going down. They judge and criticize themselves a lot, and that judgment will keep them from wanting to move forward. So I teach them, especially, how do you weigh yourself without judgment? How do you talk to yourself without judgment so it doesn't impede your results?
That's great. And that sounds like it's really related to, how you call yourself a personal trainer for your brain. And can you tell us more about what that means, and how exactly are your brain and mindset really connected to your dietary decisions? I think you've been alluding to that, but would love to hear more.
Right. So when I say being a personal trainer for your brain, it really is like being a personal trainer, because obviously when you go to the gym, you have to, before you see your muscle build, like you have to do the same exercise every day or every 3 times a week, whatever it is. But like you have to do squats 3 times a week before you see your booty grow. And you have to keep at it consistently to see the booty grow. And the same thing goes on with your brain. Like I teach people that the thoughts that we have, like the decisions we have in our mind, like the thoughts we think constantly are a lot of thoughts that we've learned in childhood, like especially about weight and food. Like a lot of us have been conditioned to have certain beliefs around food for a long time. Like especially like me and you, Charlene, in our Filipino culture, we've been taught that food means like hospitality, that food means connection and love. So you're kind of taught all these things that you don't even realize in childhood, that you're taught all these sort of messages about food that you don't even realize, like food is comfort, food is love. And so when you think a thought, a lot of times, just if like you do squats every day, that booty is going to be really firm. So then when you think a thought every day, your mindset, those neural pathways are going to be very ingrained, like very automatic. And that's something called Hebb's law, which is that neurology term that basically means that neurons that wire together, that fire together, wire together. So the more often you think a thought, the more efficiently your brain will continue to think that thought, because your brain sees it like, oh, she does this a lot. Let me make it more efficient so we can make it easier, over time. So that's called neuroplasticity. So but the beauty about neuroplasticity though is that you can change how you think. So even if you think about yourself like, I'm an emotional eater, I can't live without sugar, those are all thoughts, but you could start shifting them, like changing how you perceive things about yourself. Like, because I started believing when I went sugar free, I started thinking about myself, I'm a person who doesn't eat sugar. Like I had to make that change in my mindset. Like I'm a person who doesn't eat sugar and carbs. And then the more I just repeated that and really believed that and kept saying that to myself, it really became true. And then I was able to eat sugar and carbs much easier. So that's where the mental muscle comes in, because you have to do the reps over and over and over to change your thinking for the new neural pathways to form and solidify.
And I love that neurons that fire together, wire together. That is so cute. That's just so true. I love that. That's amazing. And so, I also love to ask our guests about their own journeys for well-being and self-care. And, you told us a little bit about your own journey and, especially having prediabetes and then overcoming that once you've been able to adopt a sugar-free lifestyle. But can you tell us more about your own journey in terms of other challenges that you faced with self-care? And then what really led you to continue to prioritize self-care despite all these challenges?
Well, I think, yeah, the biggest challenge for me was, I mean, just overcoming the stress. And especially in a nursing setting, I think the hardest thing is that you believe you have no control over the circumstances. Like you kind of just go in thinking that, oh, everything is stressful and everything is horrible and everything is difficult. Like that was the hardest shift that I had to make, because I kept thinking that everything around me was challenging. And when you do that, you don't have ownership in your life. You're not the one in control, because how you feel is always based on how the world outside you is going on. So, for example, if I had a quote unquote difficult assignment, my mood would be based on the assignment, not like up to me. It's like, oh, if I have the difficult patient, quote unquote, then I would feel bad. And that's where I felt the most out of power. Like I felt like I had no control in my life, because it's just like, oh, everything's terrible. So I had to start shifting to take care of myself, is really to take responsibility for how you perceive your situations in life. Because if you're not taking responsibility for how you feel about things or how you think about things, you're always going to feel like your life is out of control. You don't have any autonomy in your life. And that's how I felt in nursing. That's why I wanted to leave, because I felt like, oh, this place is terrible. So then had to start being like, you know what? Like, my thoughts are what create my feelings, not my workplace, not the staff, not the boss. Those things don't make me mad. What makes me actually mad is how I'm perceiving my boss and perceiving my patients. And so when I stepped into that mindset, it helped me start being responsible for how I thought. And then since I'm the one in control, then I could think different thoughts. Like, I could think more useful thoughts, like, oh, the patient doesn't want to take medications today, and that's okay. Like, I can't control that. Like, I started to just not feel like things didn't have to upset me without my consent. Like, I was able to decide if something was upsetting to me or not, like, just based on how I perceive the world around me. And that's really, I think, the true definition of self-care. And that's how I help my clients have autonomy. It's just like, how you think makes you feel the way you do. And that's the most power and freedom you could have, because that means that nothing can ever hurt you. Like, the scale can never hurt you. Your patients, like, vulgar words can never hurt you, or your coworkers being like having a certain tone of voice can never hurt you, because you're the one in responsibility for your emotions, not them.
Absolutely. And since we are, at Halloween and we are approaching the holidays, what recommendations do you have for nurses as we approach this time where there are a lot of foods, there are a lot of there is a lot of sugar. And so what would you recommend to nurses who might be wanting to make the shift, but they might still be experiencing food cravings and they're looking to be more empowered?
So that's a great question, because I know sugar and candy is going to be everywhere on the unit. So the first thing about sugar cravings that I always tell people is that there's two reasons why you have cravings. Like, first reason is that it's hormonal. You have a hormonal imbalance. Like, your hunger hormones are not balanced, because if you eat a lot of carbs and sugar, your ability to be full is impaired if you eat a lot of sugar and carbs. So the first thing you have to do to stabilize cravings is, I always recommend that you have to have your hormones balanced first, like your hunger hormones. You have to physiologically have your blood sugar stabilized first, because that will make it so much easier. So I always recommend people, like, especially with your meals, like I said earlier, for myself, like, avoid having processed foods or grains or starches or rice as much as possible, since those make your blood sugar spike, and it will make you, like, when you have a blood sugar crash, you're going to feel hungrier and irritable and crave more. So you want to have more whole foods in your diet. Like, I would like, the simplest thing anyone could do is just like have some sort of meat, eggs, above ground vegetables, and healthy fats. And that's literally it. Like, fats for cooking, like butter or avocado oil or coconut oil, like those more saturated fats are actually more stable for cooking. You want to avoid vegetable oils, since they have a lot of since they're inflammatory. But yeah, just meat, eggs, above ground veggies, fibrous veggies, and the cooking fat. That is like the only thing you need. And if you eat that every day, your hunger hormones are going to be stabilized, and you're going to feel fuller much easier. So that's the first thing I say. And then once you get that down, like, also just making sure you prep your food ahead of time. Like, you always have to plan what you're going to eat ahead of time, because the only reason why people have cravings is because they don't really plan what they're eating. So they eat reactively. Like, they just keep eating what they see in front of them, because first of all, they don't know what they're going to eat in the day, and second of all, they're not managing their mind on what to eat. Like, they just kind of eat whatever. But if you plan ahead, like kind of having a calendar or a schedule of what you're going to do in the day, if you plan your food ahead of time, like what you're going to eat, you give your brain structure to follow guidelines. So you're not just eating impulsively and just eating whatever's in front of you. So you have to structure your mind. So eat more whole foods, eat foods that are higher in protein, like natural proteins, like animal proteins or eggs or seafood. And then also eat healthy fats like avocado, nuts, or butter. And then plan ahead what you're going to eat. Like, structure your brain. Like, if you want to have a snack or something, plan like a higher protein, lower sugar snack, and eat that ahead of time so you're not just eating reactively in response to the environment. And one more thing, sorry. And one more thing, if you're eating out of stress, you have to find a way to figure out why you're stressed. Like, don't just go to the food because it's an easy out. Like, actually ask yourself, why am I stressed? And go to the root cause of the stress. So when the stress is gone, you don't even need to stress eat. So ask yourself why you're stressed and solve that problem.
These are great recommendations. And I know a lot of people have been asking me, and I've been hearing a lot about intermittent fasting too. But what would you say about intermittent fasting, and especially how it might relate to what you teach with sugar-free self-care? Does that go hand in hand? Should that be separate? Let us know any thoughts you have about that.
So yes, I teach my clients to fast, but that's more in the 3rd month of the program. I teach fasting as a tool, not only for mental health, because I think fasting is a great tool for mental clarity, which it is because it keeps your blood sugar stable and you're not having brain fog from the blood glucose fluctuations. But I use it also for a tool for maximizing weight loss, especially towards the end of my program, like in the 3rd month. I usually like to recommend it after someone has been eating sugar-free and whole foods for at least a month or 2, because if you just fast right away after eating a diet that's more full of sugar and carbs, it's going to feel a lot harder because eating sugar and carbs makes you hungrier more often. So if you just go right into fasting, you're going to feel super hungry because your hunger hormones aren't stabilized yet. So I recommend fast after at least a month of eating sugar-free, low-carb, whole foods, and then you could fast like starting with 16-hour fast in an 8-hour window. And the point we do that, it's not that you're starving yourself, but you're just eating your same meals within a time frame. Like, you eat all your meals in the day in the 8-hour time frame, so that you don't eat for 16 hours straight. And that way, for 16 whole hours, you're not eating food, you're not having sugar, and that can keep your insulin low. It could force your body to use all your glucose stores, so you could burn your fat for fuel. And when you start burning your fat for fuel, that could help you have more energy, and that could also give you like more mental clarity, just because your blood sugar, again, your blood sugar levels aren't so what do you call it, volatile.
Right. Thank you. That's really great information about fasting. And I've just been hearing about it everywhere. I think it's pretty popular in the Bay Area. But I'm sure throughout the country too, a lot of people are interested in that. So thank you for sharing about that. And so what is next for sugar-free self-care? What's on the horizon that we could look out for?
So next for sugar-free self-care is I'm launching my next program in January 2022. It's a 3-month online coaching program, my Impulse Mastery program. And something new that I'm implementing, which will start next year in my next round, is I'm actually creating a live retreat. This is the first time I'm doing an in-person retreat, but it's called, I'm calling it a dopamine fasting retreat. And what I'm going to do in that retreat is that it'll help you learn how to actually balance the dopamine dysregulation in your brain, because a lot of times when we eat sugar and carbs, it's making our brain seek out dopamine in ways that are not moving us towards our goals. Like, we always want to eat all the time, and we do that with our phones, and we always want to seek a dopamine hit. We always want pleasure. So with my dopamine fasting retreat, it's going to help you regulate the reward centers in your brain and find more pleasure in natural life, like simple pleasures, so you don't have to constantly want to escape with artificial pleasures like the internet or eating too much or wanting to go on vacation all the time. Like, it's a way to help you just keep the reward center in your brain like not so tipped to the side of pleasure, because when your brain starts being wired to want pleasure all the time, that's what leads to addictive behaviors, and that leads to obviously having a life that it feels like you're out of your control, and then you're maybe gaining weight or you're not productive anymore. So I want to help people sort of reset their brains in that way by by learning how to be more mindful in that retreat. So I'm pretty excited to start that next year.
That's awesome. Can't wait to hear about that news, and can't wait to hear about that launch. So that's really exciting. And I wanted to ask this actually earlier, but do you miss bedside or direct patient care at all? How do you miss being a psychiatric nurse, or what are your thoughts? Do you think you'd ever go back?
So I mean, there are aspects of it. Like sometimes a part of me is like, the biggest thing was like I did like interacting with people more and being on my feet a lot at work and getting to talk to patients. But I don't know. I feel like when you do pursue your calling, like when you really do pursue the life that you know you're meant to live, and you really feel like you're making the impact that you want to make in the world, it's like I really can't imagine myself doing anything else anymore. It's just kind of like I feel like this is it. This is what I was made to do. And so I'm always happy to help if anyone needs psychiatric help, but I feel like I love the impact I'm making with my business and with helping clients. And I can't see myself doing anything else. I feel like I was made for this.
Yes, it's amazing. And I know that recently too, you were on the stage with Tony Robbins, and you were among a ton of people. Can you tell us more about that experience and how you got there?
Yeah, so it was a joint event. Tony Robbins was there, but I was actually interviewed by his business partner, Dean Graziosi. And I mean, Dean Graziosi is also he's a huge I guess you could say celebrity in the personal development world. He's like again, he works with Tony Robbins in a lot of like business projects and programs that they make together. But anyway, so I was in one of his coaching programs last year, and I was just really active in the group. I was really doing the work and helping people, and I was just encouraging in the group. And then out of the blue, they kind of asked me to speak on stage. Okay, not out of the blue, but I think they were so impressed by just how I showed up in the group that they invited me to speak on a panel with them in something called the World Summit, which was a online event that had 18,000 people a few months ago. And so, yeah, I spoke on a panel and in front of 18,000 people online, like in the biggest Zoom conference you could ever imagine. And it was crazy. It was fun. And I was able to tell people my story about how I left nursing to do what I'm doing. And it was awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I saw the stage that Tony Robbins set up. And for those of you who hadn't seen it, you should look it up. Tony Robbins Zoom stage, or I'm not sure what else will pop up on Google, but it was an amazing setup. And Charmaine got to present on Zoom in front of the 18,000 people. So that's incredible. That's an awesome experience. And do you have any advice or any recommendations you want to share to nurses who, might want to pursue a different path in nursing outside of bedside care, or just in general if they're feeling like they're a little bit stuck in their career?
Well, I have a few things to say on that because, yeah, I know exactly what it feels like. And I think, first of all, before you leave, I think definitely something that I was taught by my mentor, Brooke Castillo, before I left my job which was really counterproductive, because people want to leave a job because they think that leaving the job will make them feel better. And it kind of goes back to my point about taking responsibility for your emotions and really knowing that it's not your work that makes you feel good or bad. Like, it's not your work's job to make you feel happy. It's really, that's your job. So I had to really remember that the work can't make me happy. So if your incentive to leave is to feel happy, just kind of sort of explore that a bit before you go. Because if you're thinking the job will make you happy and you go to a new job, and you're depending on that job to make you happy, it's not always guaranteed. Like, you might not end up liking it or things like that. And that's what happened when I became a personal trainer. Like, I thought, oh, as long as I become a personal trainer, everything's going to be fixed and I'm going to be happy. But when I became a personal trainer, I realized, oh my God, I don't really like this. And I'm not as interested in muscles and movement and anatomy. as I thought I was, and it just wasn't like what I liked. So it was good that I tried that before I left, but I really had to be a person who's like, you know what, I'm the one in charge and responsible for my happiness, not my job. So I had to do the inner work and really learn, like, how can I just love my job first and then leave from that place? Because when you leave from a place of really loving the job, then you know that wherever you go, you could enjoy it, and that you're only leaving just because you want to, like, not because you feel like leaving will make your life better. So I felt like that was much more empowering. So I think that's the biggest thing I recommend to somebody, like really remember that it's not the work that makes you feel better, but how you're thinking about it, and can you take ownership for how you feel, and then can you practice leaving your nursing job when you feel like you love the job first, because then you could love any job you're in. So that was a big thing. And then also, just whatever job you're going into, make sure that you maybe like practice it. Like, I went per diem before I went full-time in my coaching business. Like, I went per diem, and then I started my coaching business on the side, so I could just see, like, do I like this or not. So I would also test drive it just to make sure it's actually something you could see yourself doing every single day, because if you hate your business, oh, that's going to be really hard.
Yes, absolutely. And would you say, how do you think someone will know when they found the right business for them? I guess when, when it makes, it is one thing if it makes them happy, but I guess it's another thing if they feel happy doing it, or what do you think about that? How do you think someone will know when they found the right business to pursue if they do want to go that route?
For me, I'm very intuitive. Like, a lot of my decision making, it doesn't make sense. Like, I just only know, like, how I went into psych nursing. Like, all I knew in my mind was, I didn't know what field of nursing I would go into, but all I knew in my mind was, I don't like medicine. That's just what I knew about myself. I didn't know anything about psychiatry. But once I went into psychiatry, just something fueled inside of me where I was like, oh, I love this. And I just follow that. Like, anytime you have that, like, this is why I teach my clients, because a lot of us are disconnected with our body and our intuition and our bodily sensations and our emotions. So the more in tune you are with how you feel, you could tell internally what you are passionate about. So that requires, though, not eating and not doing a lot of things that will prevent you from feeling your emotions, because when you eat, it's going to numb your emotions. So I just recommend, eating sugar free and getting more in tune with your body, and then just paying attention, like, what lights you up, what makes you feel amazing. Because also, like, when I found out about the life coach school, I got the same thing. I was like, this is it. And then I don't question it. Like, I don't go like, are you sure this is it? I just, when I have that feeling, like, I have this, it's like my eureka moment. Like, I've had several of those. And when it's like eureka, then I just follow it. Like, I don't question it. I just signed up for the coach training, like, no questions asked. And then when I follow my intuition, it always leads me to what to something that I wanted to do.
So it sounds like really looking inwards and looking at what your gut is telling you, what your intuition is telling you, and sticking to that. Not being afraid to kind of lean into that and explore that a little bit more.
Right. Right. Like, so many of us are disconnected from our bodies, though, because we just keep eating and we don't even know how we feel. Like, so many nurses, if you just ask someone how you're feeling today, they're just like, I'm okay, but nobody can name an emotion. No one wants to feel hunger. No one wants to feel pain. We just want to eat and escape all the time. So that's why it's so important. Like, stop going to food for, like, just try to eat the basics, and then just observe what comes up when you eat the basics. Like, how are you feeling? Because if you don't have that relationship with your body, it's really hard to tell what you actually want.
Right. And we are getting to the end of our conversation. That went by so fast, but Just wanted to invite Michael to read some of the comments we did get in the chat. I think we got a few.
Yeah, we did. So we got some appreciation from Flora and Elizabeth, leaving a lot of hearts in the chat. And we have Cecilia Farmer saying, best psych nurse coworker. So yeah, we got some awesome feedback.
Oh yeah, I wanted to say for Cecilia, because it's a joke, because her first day of work was my last day at work. So it was just so funny. Like, I saw her at UCLA, and then it was just so funny. We were like co-workers, but it was my last day and her first day. It was so funny.
The one day made a big impact, it looks like. And looks like there's another comment. Michael, do you want to read that one too?
Yeah, so Elizabeth also says, so proud of these two ladies, #twins. I feel inspired by your positivity and energy.
Thank you, Liz. Heart you so much. Liz and I are coworkers. But thank you so much. And and there was also another question. Just what do you think about having a twin who's also a nurse? What do you think about being twins and nursing twins?
Oh, I think it's fun. Like, it's fun to have a twin who really understands what you're going through. Like, I don't know, it's just fun, because then you really connect on that level. And I know when you're a nurse, it's kind of like being in like a cult or something. It's like once you know what it's like, and it's just,
If you know, you know.
once you know. That hashtag. And like, so it's fun because there's just certain things that only you guys can understand as twins, and then when it's like you're both nurse twins, then it's like a different level.
Oh, it's even better. It's like
Yeah,
two cults.
and Charlene always inspires me too. Like, I love seeing her and what she's creating. Like, it's so fun. Like wherever Charlene goes, she creates something. I think we have this sort of we have this urge to always like create and make a change, and it's so cool to see what she creates. So I get inspired by that and seeing her impact.
Well, thank you so much, Charmaine. It's so inspiring to see all the work that you're doing, the impact that you're making, and all the benefits that you've obviously been sharing to everyone with when it comes to physical health and mental health. So thank you for everything that you do. And how can people find you to learn more about your work?
So I'm on Instagram at sugarfree.selfcare. You could also go to my website at sugarfreeselfcare.com, and I offer a free quiz there if you want to learn more about your eating behaviors. You could tell if you're an impulsive eater or not by taking that free quiz. And yeah, those are the two main things. Oh, and
Great.
YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/sugarfreeselfcaretv.
Great. Thank you so much. And so to everyone listening, you could find Charmaine at sugarfreeselfcare.com and her other social media handles. And thank you everyone so much for tuning in today. You've joined us with our October Fifth Window Spotlight featuring Charmaine Platon, Sugar Cravings Coach and founder of Sugar Free Self Care. And please continue to follow us on social media. I'll go ahead and put the link here. So you can follow us on linktree.com/fifthwindow or visit us at fifthwindow.com. That's FIFTH window.com to learn more about us and to learn more about the nurses that we feature in our spotlights every month. But thank you so much. Thank you, Charmaine. Thank you, Michael. It was wonderful to have you and hope you all have a great Halloween.
Thank you for having me. Happy Halloween.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.